back. Hope you're enjoying your morning, your afternoon, your evening, whatever time you're tuning in here. We have another super fun guest today. This is one of the few real marketing leaders that I've gotten to know over the last few years. So I'm really excited to talk with her. Her name is Liz Egan. For 10 years, she rose to the ranks at a company called Yext, which I think went public a little while ago. Liz, can you?
2017.
2017. Okay, great. Before she moved on to become the CMO at Sprig, which many of us know, and more recently, she was the CMO at Lattice, which is one of the leaders in HR tech, doing workforce management, performance management, all that good stuff there. So Liz, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. I'm a huge fan of learners and of you personally. So great to be here.
I appreciate it. It's always great to chat with you. There's so much that I want to dig into here because, we started as a little itty bitty community and a lot of it has grown organically. And for us, so much of, I'll put in air quotes, marketing has been such a mystery. And I don't understand it. I never understand it, which is funny too, because our entire business model is built around companies sponsoring us in some way with marketing money to go. And I'm just like happy to take it. You think it works? That's fantastic. And obviously I've learned a little bit more and I have more confidence in what we sell since the early years. But I would love if you could kind of, when you talk to, let's say, a new founder who doesn't really understand this stuff, what do you explain marketing is? What's the function?
Yeah. Marketing is, what a big question. Marketing is such a, it's so many things. And I think that is part of what makes it really challenging is you have to be sort of an expert in like 7 different things to do sort of full scope of marketing really effectively versus other functions are kind of like you have to do one thing really well and really master that. What each company needs from marketing also looks different. And so that's where I think marketing and marketers can get into some binds because what a certain company needs looks different than another company. And there's different people with different sets of skills where that's going to be the right fit. So at the simplest sense, what I think of marketing is you're basically creating a perception or awareness in let's say the market or among your buyers, and then ultimately trying to generate demand pipeline for the business so the sales team can go do their thing. So it's really it's about creating sort of a sense of first awareness and reputation, and then turning that into dollars.
Fantastic. So let's talk a little bit about that, because one of the things you just mentioned is there's a lot of different things that are included in there, and what's right for one company is not right for another. I remember a conversation I had recently with somebody who is running a company. They've got maybe they're doing like $10 million a year in revenue, and they're considering whether or not they want to sponsor or support a particular event, not necessarily one of ours. And one of the things that this individual said, and I don't think they really have marketers on their team necessarily, was that, well, I'll look at the ticket price for sponsoring an event, and then I'll compare that to like how much Google AdWords I would get. And instinctively, I was like, that seems super weird and like not right. But I don't know anything. This guy is running a business. They're successful-ish, I guess, whatever. Mm-hmm. How would you, if somebody said that to you and you're just maybe listening to that conversation, how do you respond to that? Or what comes to mind?
Well, okay. So I like my head goes to, okay, what's their business? Are they selling to small businesses? They're selling enterprises. What are they trying to do? Each tactic is going to have its own, its own cost, its own, acquisition cost. It's also going to have its own, long-term benefits. So when you think about like paid search, Google AdWords, you're capturing the intent that's already in the market. So someone is searching for something and you want to capture that. That means it already exists to some degree. And so it's like, who's going to get it? That's going to be probably fairly transactional, like someone who isn't looking for your company necessarily. And so you have to then kind of convince them and work them through. It's all digital. You're not going to have a human involved versus an event, which is going to be super human. It's more about relationships. And even if that's a virtual event, right, there's some dynamic where it's going to be about like, about like some human connection. And so I love events because, particularly for enterprise, because you can just go build relationships with the people that you're trying to to get to know. And I love stage time. And that's where you can, it's a way for you to educate, but it's also a way for you to just say like, here's the humans who are behind this business. And you can kind of create that energy, and get that vibe out there. But generally events are going to be like a higher funnel activity, meaning it's probably more about awareness and education than it is about like conversion, where you can actually go and put your money into AdWords, get someone to convert that day. If your thing is, I don't know, $100 a year, they could go, Instagram ads for consumer, you think of it that way. You can turn that into some reliable revenue. It really depends. Again, it depends on the business, where if you're selling a $100,000 enterprise thing, AdWords is only going to get you so far.
Right. One of the things, I think I was talking to one of the folks that you were working with a while back when you were at Sprig, and she broke out marketing into kind of like two buckets. One was what you call demand gen, right? Mm-hmm. And then the other half was this brand building thing. Mm-hmm. And is that one of the ways that you look at, because you're a marketing executive, you usually are managing teams, you're looking at all the different things that you're investing money into and time into. Is that kind of one of the key lenses that you use to look at, like, are we investing in the right place?
Yeah, I really think of two things. It's reputation and I think of it as pipe gen generally. That's not how I'd organize a team. A team is going to have more granularity than that. There's usually three functions. There's, let's call it brand or corporate marketing, product marketing, and then demand gen. Those are usually the three teams that you'll see. And then there's many variations within that. But like in terms of the goals of things, to me, there's sort of reputation, which is going to be top of funnel, and then demand, whatever, which will be more bottom funnel.
Okay. So, and the top of funnel awareness stuff, that has always been so confusing to me to kind of put a value on, right? And maybe that's a totally impossible exercise. Yeah. But when, I've seen it happen now enough times, like just on a very granular level, where somebody has become aware of, just for example, with the events that we run, become aware of a product over the course of 1 or 2 years because they've been at an event with them. Yep. And then later on, it transacted, and they'll tell me, oh yeah, I met so-and-so at the event 2 years prior, right? And it took maybe a job change or a promotion before the opportunity was right. Now, if that company asked me to give them a report on the impact of like partnering with us on this event or sponsoring this event, there's no way in a million years I could ever try and capture that future possibility in that report. And yet that turned into substantial revenue. Mm-hmm. How do we have conversations around this when it feels so like ephemeral and all over the place?
I mean, I would say a good marketer will understand that and have their system, their Marketo or HubSpot set up appropriately that they can track that.
Really?
Oh yeah. What I think is really hard is the timeline some of this stuff takes. So the idea of making an investment today that's going to pay off in 2 years, not everybody can stomach that or afford that or whatever it is. And so when you have like a first time founder who really doesn't understand it, it's hard. And that's part of the role of marketing, and the marketing leader is hard, where you're trying to sort of educate people. You mentioned I was at Yext for 10 years. There's something really wonderful about having that long of a time horizon, because 2 years was whatever. Like it was just, a fraction of the time I was there. And we did big enterprise deals. And so they took 2 years. Mm-hmm. But we had the tolerance for that and we could understand it. But then we would go through when a deal closed and see who was involved at what stage, where did we meet these people? And sometimes it was an event 2 years ago when they were in a different job. And that's just like that's the nature of enterprise. And that's where but like SMB is going to be different, and the value of things is different, right? If you're selling something that's $10,000 a year, you make different decisions. You have to.
Yeah. It's so it sounds like one of the fundamental things, at least from a trust building point of view with, if you're maybe a newer marketing leader, is to make sure to the whatever extent you can to track everything so that you can assign an attribute later on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
sounds
really
painful,
hard,
but
particularly in a world where you don't have cookies in the same way, where people know how to evade your forms and all these. And actually, one of the questions that I think you had for me is, do I have any non-consensus view that I hold on marketing? And I think in the last call it 2010 to 2020, there was this move towards attribute everything, measure everything for the business, and gate everything. Meaning, if there was like an ebook, you put it behind a gate and you have to fill out a form, and that's how you access your stuff. Everything should be trackable. I don't really want to give people my email. Like, I want to read the ebook a little bit, but not that much, and so I'm just going to skip it personally. That's me. My non-consensus view is that everything should be for the user. And I think user researchers will get this, right? It should all be about how do we add value for them. And that's what's ultimately going to add to our reputation and our brand of being like, oh, they care, they get me, they're a useful resource. And Lattice actually has done this really effectively of creating the resources for humans, which is a play on human resources, but where it's amazing the library of content that team has created over many years. It also serves as an SEO play. So there is a business benefit to it, but ultimately you're giving to the user, to your community. And I think that marketing should always put the quote unquote user first. And if you do that, you will be more successful, even if you can't measure everything, you can't attribute everything.
I can't even think about how many times this comes across my brain, but there's this great quote. I think it's Deming, which is not everything that can be tracked matters, and not all that matters can be tracked. Yeah. And, it's very easy because whenever you track something, obviously it's like, it feels good. It's right there in front. It's on the dashboard, yep. Right? And tomorrow you can make it a little bit better than today, and you can feel good about the progress. But the things that you can't really see that matter a lot, you just can't. And sometimes it's just do really great shit consistently, and that'll pay off.
It's hard where you're like, okay, finance, I want $1 million for this thing.
Right.
You didn't measure the last thing. I'm not giving you money.
Right.
And how do you know where to invest? If you don't really know what's working, it's more of a feeling thing. How do you, and this is the tension where marketing is very, very challenging, and marketing leadership is challenging because exactly, you can't measure everything. And Nike, I don't know if you've been following this, Nike during the pandemic switched everything DTC, measure everything, walk away from kind of the heritage of their brand work. And the business is just like, I think the CEO stepped down last week.
Yeah.
And that's just a signal to me, like, cool, you could measure everything, but actually where's the heart? Where's the emotion?
It's so funny you say that, right? Because with Nike in particular, and I'd love to get your comments on this. Nike sells a commodity product. They're just shoes, right? There's a ton of different companies that make shoes, right? But they are able to extract such a high price because of reasons. I think that they're great shoes. I buy their shoes.
Yeah.
But it's really just brand. It's just this consistent brand message of our shoes are all about excellence and ambition. And all of our brand ambassadors, all these athletes are all about excellence and ambition. So you buy the Nike shoes because that's what you want to associate with, right? And it sounded like they really took a turn away from that. But the funny thing, again, is you make that investment for 30, 40 years. It's a while before you start to lose, right? Like the day you stop the marketing efforts, your costs go down, but your revenue still is continuing along, right? And I think it took 2 years or something like that before they really started to see the results of not investing in that stuff.
Yep. My take on that is actually, I don't know, you may know this. My husband is a creative director in advertising, and he and I started a little consumer brand. First product was hand wash, commodity product. Ours is better. I mean, it's all natural. Of
course.
Essential oils, all that. Like, it is superior, but it's a commodity product. And so the whole thing ultimately was an exercise in brand.
Right.
And in some ways, when you have something that's so clearly that, it's actually easier to do the brand work because you just that's what it is. Versus in B2B, I actually think it can be harder because it's like, no, I want to market the widget and the feature and the because it is maybe perhaps more differentiated. But if you don't invest in brand, you're going to hit a wall or a ceiling at some point.
Yeah. One of the things that I've also been thinking a lot about is, when a company starts or whatever, what kind of a company it is, right? Like Google is clearly a technology company. The whole thing is oriented around software engineering. Wonderful, right? Airbnb is clearly a design company, right? They don't actually really make new technology per se. They obviously make a lot of software. But the thing that makes it special is the ability to like organize these software pieces in such a way that makes you feel very comfortable traveling across the world and sleeping on someone's couch that you don't know, and being comfortable that they're not going to like assault you, take your money, do whatever, right? That's a design company. Can you think of like what are the attributes of like a marketing led company? You know, is there such a thing?
I mean, yes, Nike. Like I think it's the commodity companies that sort of stand for something bigger than what they sell. I'm trying to think of a B2B example though. I mean, Salesforce is a marketing led. I mean, they might say they're sales led, but they kind of go hand in hand, right? So,
and they spend like $100 million on Dreamforce, right? And like,
I don't even know the number, and I would not be shocked if it was 100 million.
Yeah.
Yeah, or even like last week, I think they announced the Agent Force thing, and I guarantee they haven't started building that. Like that whole thing was, and that's what they do. They put it out there. They see what the response is. If people want to buy it, they build it, or they change it. And it's not a dumb way to do it.
Did you hear about the comedian they had at Dreamforce?
Someone just texted me like a minute ago, and I like a link to a tweet about this. And so tell me your take. I haven't read it yet.
You should read some of the banger liners that this individual put out. I think it was John Mulaney, and the one that really stuck out to me, just because this is, I think, so related to the conversation, was like the fact that there are 45,000 trailblazers all in this one area together. We're really like stretching the definition of the word here. Like, you know, and it, you know, coming back to your point, right? Like around brand and marketing and whatnot, if you can really make all these conference attendees that work the same job in so many, you know, thousands of enterprises around the world really walk in there and feel like a trailblazer, guess what? They're going to buy your software. That's
because it's identity, it's feeling, it's emotion. And that's what marketing done really well is. It's emotional. I like to say and tell my teams that marketing is a feeling. Like, yes, it's cool to have the numbers, but if the whole company is like, whoa, this is working, or whoa, we're excited, that's when you're successful.
Does that come from marketing, or is that like executive, like founder or a founder thing?
You got to the core of this.
I'm super curious about this because I don't know.
I have worked at mostly founder-led companies. So I will say that's my caveat here. I think that marketing cannot be extracted or separated from the founder, in that like the founder has all that sort of like mojo, and the marketing's job is to amplify it and perhaps evolve it and, you know, bring everybody along. But the founder is the secret sauce. And, you know, at Yext again, you know, he was basically the CMO. Like he was the one who had like the wacky ideas and the vision and all this. And then our job was kind of like actually operationalize it and make it a thing, and then fill in the holes of the things he didn't care about. I think a founder is a really big asset for marketing.
How so? Like, what are the things that like a great founder unlocks that would be really hard if you were at like Coca-Cola, let's say, or some other company that's not founder led?
So Jack Altman, founder of Lattice, he's amazing. He, you know, I think this was an intentional decision, but he created like an online presence for himself. And he now talks mostly about investing because that's what he's doing, but like about people stuff related and building companies and all this. And then when he was focused on Lattice, it was a lot about sort of his observations on the HR space and leadership and all of that. Unbelievable asset. Unbelievable. It was described that like when he would go to the industry conferences, it was like Harry Styles was walking around. You know? And, maybe the CEO of Coca-Cola has that same thing, maybe in certain circles, but I think it's one of those almost free, you know, assets if you can build on it, and it's a renewing resource. So you don't, you know, he builds it and then you just continue to maintain your content and you're good.
Wow. One of the things
authentically, that's why it worked.
Right, because he really believed those things.
Yeah, nobody was writing for him, like he was writing it.
One of the things I really want, I feel like it would be a missed opportunity if I didn't ask you about this, because I feel like you've already kind of brought this up in a sense when you're talking about the founder-led stuff. But, you know, it's not very often where you see somebody that is able to like start at a company and rise through the ranks, you know, like you did at Yext, right? And of course, as you do that, and especially probably there's certain milestones where you got promoted to where you're like, oh, that's why things are the way they are, kind of thing like that. some painful experiences maybe come back. What one of them was obviously the importance of the kind of like marketing vision that can kind of essentially is drawn from the founder. Are there other ones that kind of come to mind for you where you were just like, okay, I see it now?
On marketing, with marketing?
This doesn't even have to be about marketing. It could be how marketing works with other people too. Yeah, or even leadership too.
Yeah. Well, my point where marketing is funny is you have like 30 different career paths within marketing, because you could be a marketing ops person or a demand gen person or an events person, and each of them have just a different set of skills. And so when you rise through the marketing leadership ranks, you're responsible for learning what each of them do. Like, I have to be able to inspect and hold the bar high on all of their work, even if I didn't come up through that. And like, that's actually pretty challenging. And one of the reasons that this job is hard. What are some of the things that I observed?
If I recall correctly, because I met a lot of the team that was working for you at Sprig, but there was like at least 7 different functions, like different skill set types that I ended up interacting with at times. There was somebody who did partnerships, somebody who did brand, I think somebody who did ops, someone who was doing content, maybe 2 people are doing content. And so you essentially have to be competent enough to evaluate the quality of work for all of those things to be successful.
And then at Lattice, my team was, we had sales development too, it was like 65. And sales development's different, but like core marketing, 30. And there weren't that many people who had the same role, like duplicate roles. So there's, let's call it 25 functions that you have to be dangerous in. Yeah, it's a thing. Let's see though, your direct question was around sort of as at different stages. I think probably exposure to how decisions get made and the nuances of just how work gets done, I think is interesting. For me at Yext also, like I grew faster than the company grew, but when I joined, we were 10 million in revenue. When I left, we were 400. So like it was a fundamentally different company. And there were multiple stages. I remember we brought in various leadership from the outside and like that, those were moments of pretty big change. And so I think what I learned is so much of this stuff is relationships, like being able to communicate, being able to have the trust and rapport built, having somebody on text that you can go to really quick to solve a problem versus someone who you don't really have a tight relationship with. That stuff, that currency is really important. And one of the reasons that actually when you're at a company for a long time, you build that. You may not even realize you're building it, but you build it and it becomes easier.
Yeah. That's really neat. Well, what about outside the marketing function? What are the things that somebody can bring you, maybe from product, maybe from design, maybe from research, whatever it is, that is just like, you see this and you're like, yes, thank you so much. This has brightened my day. Are there any things like that you've seen come your way just out of the blue where you're like, this is just amazing to get as a marketer?
Yeah. Something that out of the blue that particularly like research and product teams will bring are either like trends or maybe some data points that then we can go and turn into something much bigger. If you're at a larger company, you might have like a insights team or something, but most people don't have the luxury of that at the smaller companies. And so any of those little kernels of things where we're like, whoa, I had no idea. I would love to amplify that story. That is awesome.
So just like bring you customer stories or like bizarre ways people are using the products, you can hone on a new use case.
Yeah. Or any trends you're seeing. Exactly. Like all of that kind of stuff. And customer stories that can feel heavy, even just like an anecdote of like, oh, like you said, this person's using this in this interesting way. Or we're seeing like, whoa, all of these people are whatever, a different persona is using the product more than they used to. It depends on the product, but that stuff is gold.
And are there opposites to that as well, where something lands on your desk and you're like, God damn it, Joe! Like, did you really have to?
The job
that's the job.
Yeah, I mean, when timelines change or when someone didn't communicate something and it means we have to do all of our work again. Anything that's like that messes up the flow of work and requires duplicate work is probably what frustrates me the most, but is par for the course.
Right. When you talk to other, like obviously the people that probably tend to hire you are not marketers. or other people that are kind of interested in marketing, what do you think is the one of the number one things that they can kind of pick up to either be a better assist to marketing or to be better at marketing themselves, that you see where it's like, just, maybe it's just start doing this, or
Yep.
take note of that, that you just find yourself giving that advice a lot?
I think focus. So deeply, deeply understanding who you're trying to go after and be precise about it. Where, I keep describing how like the motion for enterprise looks pretty different from the motion from SMB. You have to run different marketing programs for those people, and and by the way, you build different products for those people often. And so if you're trying to serve everyone, you're not going to serve anyone. And so the more precise you can be, the better. Like I love, for example, a vertical go-to-market within like a horizontal product. So at Lattice, a couple months ago, we introduced credit unions, super specific sub-vertical, right? That's financial services, and then even a sub of that. But they have people who are really focused on this type of work, and they're sort of behind in the game, and they have trade shows you can go to that are super cheap to sponsor, and you can have content that's directly for them and like speak to them in their language, and you're just going to have a much higher return on that investment than if you're just trying to speak to everyone. So actually the more focused you can get, the better.
That's such an interesting example there, because obviously Lattice is not a small company, right? But even at that time, you're doing specific campaigns for this ultra niche. You didn't even just hit up financial services. You went another level deeper that said, you know what, we're going to win this really thin slice of the pie, which obviously represents still substantial amounts of revenue. Credit unions are big companies, but let's just win this little slice. And I guess you kind of grow from there, or do you just kind of rinse and repeat where it's okay? Yeah. So the next time it's not financial services to credit unions, it's financial services to insurance companies.
Or life sciences, I think was next, and consulting, whatever. You just go. And we did this at Yext to great effect, and we actually verticalized the product in some cases and the sales team. And so we had, Yext for fins, Yext for food, Yext for healthcare. And it worked so well.
Why do you think that works so well? Like, I mean, obviously there's some high level, like, well, so it's for them, right? Like, and there's like this, obviously the superficial analysis here, but there's obviously like a deeper layer to this that makes it work.
That's actually a huge part of it is, if you're talking to healthcare, they use the word patients, not customers. And so if you say customers, they're like, this product isn't really for me. Maybe I can use it, but it helps take the risk away for them. If they're like, oh, okay, they get me. This is like a purpose built for me, kind of. And then they see their peers using it. And then you have the kind of like jealousy marketing, right? Where if Cleveland Clinic is using it, well, it's good enough for them. It's good enough for me. And so you kind of end up getting everybody that way. And then what was the other, I had another thought there. It's also just like where they spend their time. So if these people go to this niche, what I would call niche trade show, they don't go to Dreamforce, they go to whatever it is, you can go and build a relationship with them. And that's ultimately what this is. And so the relationship is about trust. And if you are speaking their language, they're going to trust you more.
It's funny because I think that the focus on relationships come up a few times here, and in an industry that is so focused on like scale, right? And getting to the, I remember I've conversations with like an investor once upon a time where they like turned to me and, oh, you're early stage company. Yes, whatever. How many millions of users do you have? And I'm like,
millions?
Just like this blank look, like, okay, I don't even want to talk to you anymore. My feelings are hurt. and yet, like, even, and these bigger companies that you're running marketing for, and yet it comes back somehow to like the individual. And I feel like you probably have built up a lot of, let's say, gut instinct, for this. Is it just like a human nature thing? And that's kind of like the base level of marketing is like, do you understand how to talk to humans and like just be around other people? And then you build up the marketing chops from there.
I studied classics in college. I studied Latin and Greek, which doesn't make me better at understanding humans. But I learned all the marketing on the job. And I think that this is going in a different direction. I have one thought and then I'll go to there. the relationship thing is most important with bigger deals. So mid-market into mostly enterprise. SMB, like at Yext, we sold to large, like JP Morgan, and then we had really strong product market fit with like plumbers. We call them VSB, very small business. You didn't try to build a relationship with the plumber. You did want to build trust, and they needed to, and awareness. But it wasn't about taking them to dinner, right? That just wouldn't make sense financially. So there is like, if you're going way down market, it's a different, more transactional game versus enterprise. I think I like bigger deals more, which is why I lean into the relationship stuff. But even at the transactional end of things, you're building trust and rapport, similar to your Airbnb example, right? Like you have to trust you're not going to get robbed. They do that through a variety of different ways. It's the same kind of concept. Okay, where we were going though, now I've lost my train of thought. Where were we going?
Understanding human nature, I think, and building marketing chops on top of it.
Understanding human nature, learning on the job. Marketing is one of these functions. I think it's not unique in this, but the tactics change. Like the things, I went to this like CMO invite only forum thing last week with a lot of really progressive marketers. And I was interested to hear what they're thinking about, what tactics they're using, all of this. And it was so interesting to me that a lot of them had found tons of success, let's say 10 or 15 years ago, using a certain playbook. And now they're like, but that doesn't work anymore. And so the challenge of marketing is, if you study it and you're like, this is the Bible of how I must do this, it doesn't actually necessarily translate in practice. And that textbook that was written 15 years ago isn't going to apply to today. And so that's where I think what makes a great marketer, like when I hire, I'm looking for someone who's hungry to learn, who cares about doing great work, who's highly collaborative across an organization, and has kind of a growth mindset. And then, you can learn, or I hope they can learn, or I can teach them kind of the rest of it. There's definitely some things that are like, you should learn about marketing, but I've never had formal marketing training, for better or worse.
It's amazing. Okay, one final piece of advice for all the young marketers out there. What's the thing that they need to be like thinking about, working on?
What I think allowed me to be so successful at Yext was this is maybe a little bit weird for a CMO to say, but I don't identify as a marketer. I like building companies. And so I'm using marketing to solve company problems, and people who have that hat on of like, okay, the problem is, or the company is facing this problem. Here are the 5 ideas I have to go solve that problem. They might not all work, but let me go try. That's how you're going to be successful. Versus if you're like, I want this type of execution in my portfolio, that's selfish. That's about you. If you make it about the company, you're going to be successful.
I love it. Liz, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. So
cool.
Fun.
For all of you tuning in, hope you catch the next episode. This is a great one on marketing. We have another one as well that I hope you've seen with Kira Kloss, focusing all about branding. We've got some more coming out too, so don't forget to subscribe, get that little notification, and if you like it, drop us a little review. If you don't like it, do something else with your time. We only want the good ones. So catch you at the next one, and thanks for tuning in, everyone.